The 2023 NBA champion Denver Nuggets close out the Miami Heat in game 5, but a final score of 94-89. We wanted to talk to our guy, Brian Fonseca, all about this game. Brian, how you doing, man?
Doing well. What a game to wrap up what I thought was a good series, all things considered. I know people are gonna poo-poo certain things about it, but I was very entertained the whole way.
Yeah, let's talk about this game 5 and what happened here. The Miami Heat put together quite an effort. Bam Adebayo had a great game. Jimmy Butler put some points up late in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't enough after a couple of turnovers late by the Heat. What did you see down the stretch from the Denver Nuggets defensively to shut down this Miami Heat offense?
I think both teams were shutting each other down to some degree. Had a tough time getting the offense going, but this was like a classic playoff game. It was something that we saw growing up, right, with more regularity, and even not that long ago. And really, just the defenses were making it hard for other teams to score. And they always say in the playoffs, things get bogged down, and then you start seeing more isolation plays. And there was a lot of Jimmy Butler isolation. Denver was moving the ball, and they were getting Nikola Jokic in post-up situations and isolations and things of that nature. A couple ill-advised shots from both sides, and playoff basketball, that's where it is. So I think right now what you're looking at is just the best player in the world, and Nikola Jokic getting his title. I don't think it's a debate right now. He is the best. Two MVPs, could have won a third. I think Joel Embiid did deserve the MVP this year during the regular season, but it doesn't matter because Nikola Jokic now has finals MVP on his resume. And there's only been, but so many guys to have done that. And, he had crazy numbers in the NBA finals and in the playoffs, and he's the best player in the world right now.
Yeah, he clearly showed it. I mean, you look at his resume right now at the age of 28, now an NBA champion, mind you, bringing the first ever NBA championship for this Denver Nuggets franchise, a finals MVP, a Western Conference final MVP, five-time All-Star, five-time All-NBA, and two-time MVP at the age of 28 years old. What more can you say about Nikola Jokic and the run that he went on with this Denver Nuggets team this year?
That in a league with amazing centers, he might be in the top 10 already. That he is the best second round draft pick of all time, probably already. Who was drafted famously during a Taco Bell commercial. Who was Yusuf Nurkic's backup center at one point. Who is one of the best players, probably the best player of all time from Serbia, which has produced many great basketball players over the course of history, many of whom who've made it to the NBA and had an impact. So Nikola Jokic he's that dude. He is one of the best players that I've ever seen at this point. Like you have to give it to him, right? Like this 3-year run has been incredible. And then leading up to that, he was also exceptional. And then Jamal Murray, like as good of a number 2 as you
He
can
had a
have
great
offensively.
finals.
Yeah, and a great playoffs. And
Yep.
he's one of these guys, like we talk about Jimmy Butler a lot rising up in the playoffs, and he does. Jamal Murray is one of those guys on that list where he's a real playoff riser. Look at his playoff numbers compared to his regular season numbers. Every year there's a jump. And that's something that gained traction in the bubble. And you saw it a lot this year, and he was magnificent throughout the course of the playoffs. And this is the modern day Tony Parker, Tim Duncan sort of combination, right? Like this is the evolution of that. They shoot more threes for sure. Nikola
Yeah.
Jokic, I wouldn't say he's better than Tim Duncan all time or anything like that yet. Definitely not defensively, but there's the playmaking ability. So it's sort of the next tier of that. Like that's what they are. And Denver can really keep this going. You have no reason to think that they're not going to be in this again next year till, one of the last teams standing.
I mean, you look at the cast of characters on this Denver Nuggets team. A guy like Aaron Gordon kept making defensive play after defensive play, getting key rebounds. Obviously, we talked about Jamal Murray. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope hit a couple threes down the stretch as well. What more can you say about Michael Malone winning his first NBA championship as a head coach here with the Nuggets? The job he did as coaching, and also the other players on this team to help them put together this championship team.
And also the fourth longest tenured coach in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken, after Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, and Steve Kerr, I believe in that order, right? Like he's somebody who's been around and has sort of seen this through. Like he's been there pretty much from the start of the Nikola Jokic and then later Jamal Murray era because they were drafted a couple of years apart. Like Michael Malone's one of the best coaches in the game. He is. And, obviously I wouldn't put him above Eric Spoelstra. I can't believe that this Miami Heat team that I've been watching, throughout the course of the season ended up making it to the finals, which we could touch on in a second. But, them going on that run. But Michael Malone, like, he was able to really galvanize this team, I think, in a way that felt very championship like. And
Right.
on top of that, you had Nikola Jokic last year with Will Barton second in minutes on that team, right? And Jamal Murray, was coming back from injury this year, and Michael Porter Jr. had a devastating injury not that long ago, and Denver's sort of been depleted the last couple of years after making that deep run to the Western Conference Finals in 2020 before, they really became contenders. And for them to really break through this year, like, it's a scary sight for the rest of the league, but also it's a testament to Michael Malone and just being consistent in his messaging and getting out of this team, defensively. Because
Right.
one of the things we talked about with this Denver Nuggets team is the offense all the time, whatever. They were one of the better defenses in the NBA for the
They really
latter
were.
portion of the regular season, especially that second half of the year. And that's something that showed up in the playoffs and in this series. They were able to neutralize the hottest team in the Eastern Conference in a myriad of different ways. And while offensively they struggled against the Heat more than they struggled against anybody else, because the Heat are good defensively, the Denver Nuggets were able to stick to their principles and pull this out in 5.
And just to summarize all this, I mean, you think about the Denver Nuggets, the 1 seed in the West, they were expected to be contender, obviously, and make a run, and they obviously didn't, and they won their chip. But then you look at a team like the Miami Heat that came into this, they made a serious run in this playoffs as the 8 seed. What more can you say about the Miami Heat and the type of run that they went on with Jimmy Butler and those guys?
Since Jimmy Butler got there, they've had the most playoff wins in the NBA, which right now I believe is 38. And that's something that if you would have told me they would have done that, as high as I am on Jimmy Butler and the respect that I have for that organization, I don't know if I would have seen that. They're also the only team to make it to 2 NBA finals in the last 4 years. And I don't know if I would have seen that coming. And they were a shot away from making it last year also. Like, this is a team where, and look at the team that they got to the finals both times. Not overwhelming,
No.
but the continuity is there.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot there. And one of the things they did with this run, because it looked like they were going to be out in the first round and even in the play-in at one point. But one of the things they did with this run is they've increased the value of a lot of their guys that they could then sort of maneuver with in the offseason. They're going to have to, because of some tax reasons, some nerdy stuff that we could get into another time. But really what they've done is now they can swing big in the offseason, because you can see, like, yeah, Jimmy and Bam are going to need a true scorer there who isn't such a liability defensively or is elite enough where it doesn't matter. You're going to need some more depth on that team, a real backup center. Like, there are some things that they could potentially do and maneuver. Like, they're going to have to get busy this offseason. I don't think Pat Riley's going to want to wait around. He's 78 years old. So they're going to try to make something happen. Jimmy Butler, by the way, he'll be 34 September, entering year 13. So you kind of have to strike now. But this team is in a position to do some things. And the run that they went on, it's special. You see these kind of things in March Madness, but you don't really see it in the NBA. And it was legit. Like, they were creating all the open threes that they were making, and they were out hustling teams and got the loose balls or whatever. They just lost to a better team. I think that's really that simple. They lost to the best offense in the league, probably the best team in the league, because they are champions. And they ran out of gas, and Jimmy Butler wasn't quite the same after the ankle injury. We'll see if he gets an offseason procedure done or whatever that's going to look like. And Bam Adebayo, man, he was their best player in the NBA Finals for all the stuff that he takes leading into the postseason. He had a very strong postseason, probably his strongest, definitely since the bubble.
Yeah.
And he was their best player in the finals against Nikola Jokic. So I feel like that's noteworthy.
Well, the Denver Nuggets, in the first time in their 47 years franchise history, win their first ever NBA championship, close out the Miami Heat in Game 5, win the series 4-1, and a Game 5 94-89 final victory. Nikola Jokic is your NBA Finals MVP. Brian, thank you for giving us all your insight, man.
Absolutely. Anytime.